We left our phones upstairs because we'd get distracted. We always do.
Oh, they never stop buzzing.
No.
I'm going rogue. No socks, no shoes.
So I've not got socks.
I'm
we're
embracing the feeling of the mill. I'm just going to roll with it.
Yeah. I do tend to walk around barefoot most of the time.
It's good though.
I think it's a good way to be.
Yeah.
Right. Let's get started. Everyone comfy?
Yep.
In the blue room of the Mill, France. What's the local town? Millau?
Say that again?
The local town, is it Millau?
Millau, or Mille if you're French.
If you can say it properly.
If you can say it properly, yeah.
I had this conversation with Mum the other day. She was like, you pronounce it Trebon. I was like, no, it's Tresbon.
It's famous in modern times for its for the Norman Foster viaduct bridge that you would have gone under the other day.
Yeah, it was massive.
Big one.
Incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah. Bridges are cool.
Bridges are cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Especially when they're that big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. First question. Who is Natalie?
Natalie is a woman who was a project manager in central London, has a background in interior architecture and design, and one day decided that she was really boring because all she could talk about was her work. So I spent some time reconnecting with my creative side and got back into ceramics and pottery. Had always had a desire to live in France in some shape or form for years and years. So decided to find a biggish property to renovate. So she ish 1,000 square metres.
We'll get into that later.
And don't forget you were born in France too.
Actually, I was born in London, central London actually, but with a French mother, so who we don't know, but she. So I've been really lucky with the Brexit situation and everything to circumnavigate that with 2 passports. So I count myself very, very lucky on that score. So I'd been lucky enough to do a retail rollout across the whole of France for a couple of years, probably about 10 years ago now. And the whole time I was on the little side project of, do I want to live here? Is this the right place? And when I came here, the shop that I was working, refitting and we're doing the design work on, was really now near the Norman Foster's suspension bridge. So you had a view of that and the amazing landscape of these incredible hills. And I literally sent a text to a friend of mine, a voice note to say, I think I've decided where I want to live. And that was probably about 10 years ago. Oh. And 7 years ago, I came back over to France. I started looking for properties in the region. This property wasn't on the list. And I came here with my daughter for her 18th birthday, as a little recce sort of thing. And when we arrived in the hotel just up the road, this mill popped up. And I said, it's too big, it's in a flood zone, there'll be mosquitoes, and it's too industrial. But we'll have a look at it anyway, because it's in around the same sort of price point as the other places are looking at. And it turned out to be the first place we looked at, and it was literally love at first sight. And none of the other properties came close. But what I decided, backtracking a little bit, was that I wanted to spend more time being an artist myself and being creative, and I'd fallen back in love with doing ceramics and designing and making. So I wanted a building which would allow me to host and facilitate other artists and makers, and give myself time with a separate studio space to be an artist as well. So that's the overarching reason of how I ended up here. Okay. So, and I moved here in November 2018, spent 1 year renovating, and then obviously got, like the rest of the world, got hit by the pandemic and couldn't invite anybody. So it was been a bit of a challenge, but I'm still here and out the other side.
Yeah.
And doing well.
So you said you wanted to get back into making. What was your original making pre-project managing?
So
were you an artist before, or did you have a design background?
I was. I've always been an artist, but I came from a family that didn't value art or creativity when I was a teenager. Yeah. And I went straight into doing a hairdressing apprenticeship straight from school. Right. And I put myself through night school doing A-level art, and then all my life I've done night school and workshops, city guilds and upholstery and soft furnishings. I've done pottery courses, I've done printmaking courses, I've done A-level art twice and got an A twice. And then when my children were younger, they're all adults now, I put myself through university and I did a degree in interior architecture and design. Wow. Because for me that kind of pulled everything together. I could, it's so multifaceted and such a broad spectrum thing. So that's my sort of design background, and never really allowed myself to call myself an artist or be an artist, because I allowed it to not dominate my life. I kept trying to suppress it and thinking it wasn't a good thing. And then as I got older, I was like, let's just do that. I want to be in my happy place for as much of my life as possible.
Yeah.
And that's being with other people in a building next to a river so I can wild swim every day, and have a ceramic studio that I can make things in and share with other people. So, yeah.
Why do you think it took you so long to come back to it?
These are deep questions, Jack.
We've talked about like barbecue food.
Yeah.
We just hung out for like 3 days.
Yeah.
This is the other side. This is the other side of me.
The hardcore psychology.
Yeah.
It took me a long. It's all to do with background and insecurity and not feeling worthy of calling myself an artist. So I'd say it's self-doubt, self-sabotage, self-doubt, and not valuing myself as many women don't. You get lost in being a mother, you get lost in being a wife, homemaker, all those things. So it took me a while to find my way back to me, if that makes sense.
No, I'm glad you have.
I've done it!
Yeah. What part did the mill play in you finding yourself? Because I think it's important to say as well, you came out here yourself.
Yeah, which is...
you mean on my own?
Yeah, like you came out yourself to do a fucking mental project. Like this is no small scale project. Of this building and the age of this building and the industrial heritage of this building. Like, it's no... our flat fits in that room next to us. That's the kind of scale we're talking. And for anyone listening, like the majority of studios we've been in fits in the open space room that's next to us.
That's the flour sack store.
The flour sack store, yeah. So if you think about the store being that size, plus the heights of the mill, plus like this mill's obviously had a roof extension at some point where it's been lifted at least 3 years.
150 years ago.
Exactly. So it's got history, size in every corner.
Uniqueness.
What was it about this place that brought you back to being an artist? Or what is it about going back to being an artist that brought you to this place?
Okay, so probably need to step back a bit. So in the UK, I lived in a small 3-bedroom Victorian terraced house in just the outskirts of London. It's a cute little house, 88 square metres maybe, less than the size of that, over 2 floors. And I'd been working freelance as project manager and doing interior architecture and design. And I felt too contained. I think I got to a point where I wasn't stressed about money for the first time in my life. My children were all doing really well, going off travelling around the world, doing their own thing. I was super proud of them. And I just felt, okay, so I could stay here and be really safe. I built a little shed in the garden that I had a tiny little pottery studio in, but I just felt I wanted more space. And I wanted more connection with nature. I was lucky enough to live near some very big country parks. So there's it was easy to get out into nature, but it was the same footpaths, if you see what I mean, walking the same.
And they're also still footpaths. They've been placed there by human beings.
So making the decision to come to France, I had another mission in between. I don't know how relevant it is, but basically I had this idea to revolutionise the funeral industry.
Okay.
Not talk to you at all about this yet.
No.
So my degree show was about revolutionising the funeral industry, which I still think is a brilliant idea. And it was about contemporising it and giving people value and beauty in the whole process, which we've lost. We've built up. It's very Victorian, very sort of. So I spent a couple of years researching how to do that. And it involved needed to have a big space in London as a flagship store, and I'd have to find about 5 million to fund it. And somebody said to me, when you do this, what will you do? What's the end goal apart from revolutionising the funeral industry and finding funding for that? What would you do? And I said, I just want to be an artist and live in a big space in France. And somebody said, well, why don't you just do that then? And I clung on to the idea of needing to revolutionise the funeral industry. But the thought of spending 5 years going to banks and institutions and asking for funding, and all I'd be doing is getting funding. And I found that quite daunting. I thought, I don't want to waste 5 years doing that. I know it's a brilliant idea. Park it. Maybe I'll pick up some part of it in the future, like custom made.
You can't pursue all of them.
Exactly. Yeah. Custom made urns or something. So I kind of parked that idea and went to the end goal. It's quite difficult sometimes to know about what is. We plant all these seeds. Our brain ideas are like seeds. We plant all these seeds, and it's like we have to dabble, dig a little bit, and work out whether they're the ones that are going to grow into massive trees and forests, or whether there's that's just it's too big, it's too small, it's not the right thing, it's not the right time. There's all those things to consider. So I don't regret not doing that. So I just sort of bypassed that idea and came straight to the end goal. And that feeling of like, I'd be in central London, I'd go to an exhibition or an art gallery or show, and I'd love it and feel really buzzy and vibrant as you do in the centre of big cities. And then by the time I got into suburbia, driven home at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and everything's quiet and shut, I just felt so contained, like the world was closing in around me, and I wanted to keep expanding. I hadn't got to the end of my expansion or what I wanted to be and who I dared to be and how big I could be.
Yeah, I've got a theory about space, and I notice it more in small houses, and like I was saying to you, houses with low ceilings and spaces with low ceilings versus like big open galleries. If you are the majority factor in a room, it's really difficult to be you. Mm-hmm. It's really difficult to fill a room when a room's only this size, right? Because you, like, as a human being, you have ideas, you have everything. You're not just a body. You have all of this that goes with you, right? Mm. And it's like when you have that small space, and when you're in that small space, like, it's almost like someone described it in a podcast that's way better at describing it than I, and I'll try and find out who it was. It's like a success cap. Yeah. You can't even dream of how big it could be, because you can't even dream of how medium it could be, because you're thinking small, mm-hmm. rather than aiming like
contained.
Up here. Yeah, contained's a great word for it.
Yeah.
So out of all that, you've obviously had successful, and I say successful as a project manager because as a freelance project manager, you have to be successful. You don't get the second job. You don't become a project manager. Yeah. You then had this idea to go and do a funeral. What overcame the doubt that you had in yourself to finally come here? What was the tipping point?
I had a lot of encouragement from my kids. I'd said, I want to go to France and want to do this thing, but I'm not going to go unless you guys are ready for it, because it doesn't have to be now. I can wait a year or two, This was like 8 years ago. And they were 100% behind me.
Amazing.
There was a comment from one of them as like, kind of, you just got yourself to a point of everything being easy and not stressful, and some finances sort of behind you, and the house is done, and you sure you want to go and make it all really hard for yourself? Do you really want to do that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give it a go.
I hear you, but this is what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, okay, fine, we're all living the lives we want to do, like we want, and you should absolutely go for your goal, sort of thing. As I said, my daughter was with me when we came to look at these places, and she was super excited when she saw the actual building. When we walked up to the building, this sounds really corny, but it's almost like the building was like, I've been waiting for you.
Yeah.
And it was the first building we looked at out of the others, as I said. And it was a working flour mill until the year 2000. It had remained empty apart from flour, and all the machinery was in here, all the flour. He'd literally locked the door and left all the flour in here. And so there was a fair amount of wildlife, I would imagine.
Yep.
And big metal containers full of flour. And so somebody else, a guy called Serge, bought it after it being empty for 5, so that's 2005 to to when I bought it. And he had started the renovations, so he'd put 2 new roofs on the 2 big buildings. He put some double glazed windows in. He'd put a log burner in, because obviously it was a factory before, it wasn't a living space. He'd made a tiny little galley kitchen, and he'd made an apartment on the 2nd floor and an external spiral staircase as direct access. So when I came to see it, because obviously I've seen like buildings that haven't got anything and have got to be completely rebuilt, it had all the services. It had probably 100 grand's worth of roof on the done. It didn't need any major external knock-throughs, and it had the spaces that I needed. It had an exhibition workshop space. It had a separate studio space. It had a bit of land, access to water. Yep. So it ticked a lot of boxes.
Oh, it's a checklist property. Like it's the kind of checklist. If you're going to buy a new car, it's like it's all the optional extras are ticked.
Yeah.
You just need to do the effort at the bottom.
Yeah. So that was it really. And the previous owner, who I'm still friends with, his comment was, "I'm not being funny, but you're a woman on your own. Why do you want 1,000 square metres of not finished building?" And I said, it's because I want to create a space that can bring some revenue in and facilitate artists and residencies and retreats and workshops, and give me a separate studio space so I could be a creative artist some months of the year. And he was nodding his head as I was saying this. He went, that's really strange. He said, because I bought the property because I wanted to make a cooperative art gallery to share with lots of other artists.
The building was meant to be that.
Yeah, so the building obviously, as I said, really likes people, and the building's really happy when we've got parties going on, and we've got a full house. So I think he stuck with me through the very challenging buying process with French mortgages, Brexit in the middle of it, the pound-euro exchange rate, me having to sell a property in the UK, all sorts of external dynamics going on that took ages. He stuck with me because he knew that I wasn't going to rip the heart out of the place. Mm-hmm. And he's been back. You know.
I was about to ask, has he been back to see what you've done?
Yeah, and he's absolutely blown away with it.
Amazing.
He knew
really
that
was a right sale for the building.
And the previous owner, who was it's been in the Fabre family for 300 years plus.
They were the original ones that started it as a mill, right? Yeah,
it's the same family Fabre since before 1789. Judging by the stones, a specialist has said that judging by the stones underneath the building, where the turbine bit is, that's at least 1600 or something. And it's marked on the Carte de Cassini, which is 1789, as a moulin basse, which is the lowest mill from. There's a few other mills further up the river, or were, and we're the last one before it joins the River Sernon, joins into the Tarn. And another mill owner knocked on my door randomly one day after seeing a picture of me in the local paper, an article about this mill. And it was him that told me that this mill produced the biggest amount of flour in the whole of the region.
Really?
Aveyron, yeah, it was the biggest producer.
Wow.
So it was a really successful business. And Jean Robert, who was the last mill owner as a mill, he's been several, in fact, all the family have been, the brothers, the sisters, the nephews and the nieces, they've all come to stay and they all wander around and, you know, it get quite emotional actually, you know. They remember coming as kids and sitting at the same desk that we have here, that was their granddads, and remembered being put to sleep on top of all the, have their after lunch nap on top of the flour sacks in the flour storeroom, and where the broom used to be propped up. And I hear all these lovely little tales of like how noisy this part of the building was, where all the machinery was, incredibly dangerous. And then how they used to do exactly what you said when you saw the pulleys for the flour sacks going up through the floors. They used to jump on and go through the floors.
Health and safety never existed.
No, health and safety was definitely not a thing here. I think they really appreciate as a family how I just haven't converted it into a block of flats.
Yeah, and you've kept a lot of the features. Nice.
I've really kept as much as I possibly can.
Like your bathroom upstairs.
Yeah.
That's amazing what you've done in there.
Yeah.
Does that motivate you to keep it as is, knowing that you know the family?
Yeah, I do feel, I think maybe more for the building or as much for the building as for the family. Mm-hmm. I feel like Serge basically started the project. He was on his own with his dog, and he's passed the baton to me. And
it's just you and your cat, Mars.
No, it's just me and the cat. Not forever, hopefully.
Yeah.
And I think he really saw that I had the vision for the place, because I'd walk around saying, "Oh, I'm going to put a loo in that corner. I'm going to build this here, and I'm going to put a light fitting underneath that grain store there." And he loved that I wasn't just going to turn it into flats, which would have been way easier.
Oh, it'd have been way easier,
Yeah.
But there's a responsibility that comes with an old
There's a responsibility, and I feel, you know, it's 300 years of history. Yeah. I don't want to rip the heart out of it.
Yeah, don't be like the rest of the human race.
No.
That just like wipes the floor with it, you know what I mean? Like, there's a...
Bless you.
Bless you.
There's a custodianship that comes with old buildings as well. Like where we are in Scotland, there's a lot of very old buildings, and when you buy into an old building like that, and when you buy an old studio or you buy an old workspace, there's a custodianship that comes with that.
Yeah.
Because really, if you want a hassle-free one, flatten it and put a tin shed over it.
Yeah.
But if you want the things that everyone loves to look at, the wooden beams, the hoppers behind us, if you want that stuff, you need to keep that stuff. You need to keep it going. How was the dynamic when you were having a conversation with your kids and your kids were encouraging you to go away and do it? Because that's a very different thing. Normally it's like, I'm going to go and travel the world, Mum. I'm going to go and travel the world, Dad. And they're like, yeah, go and do it.
Yeah.
But everyone we've spoke to, that's the dynamic. Whereas you're doing it the total opposite way.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, actually. And I think subconsciously, maybe I did a thing where there's wanting to be an artist and having space. I definitely wanted those two things. I also wanted seasons that was just one big long grey patch.
Yeah.
I wanted to feel cold in the winter.
Yep.
I wanted to feel the heat in the summer. Yep. But I think maybe I wonder if subconsciously I was concerned, because I had lots of friends who were all having the empty nest syndrome. They didn't know what to do now. All the kids have gone off to uni and done things, and I don't want to be that person sitting around moping. And I've still got so much. I feel like I've got so much more life in me, so much energy, so much desire to do things. And maybe that's also because I had my kids quite young. So I'm like, I've still got like a lot of fuel left in the tank.
Your whole life to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that part of it. I think maybe psychologically or subconsciously I was thinking, okay, well, I need a project. I'm just not going to sit in this lovely little terraced house forever, sort of thing. I am quite project driven as I reflect on things I've done in the past. And then, what's the other thing I was going to say there? And the other thing is I spent 2 years working around France. So I flew out on a Monday morning at stupid o'clock, flew back on a Friday afternoon, and having been to 3 or 4 sites during the week, driving around trains and whatever. So it didn't feel, it was like doing a daily commute.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was like, well, if anything ever happened, they've got their dad is still in the UK. So he's there to support them in, always and in emergencies. And if I needed to get back, it's 15 minutes. It's not 15 minutes. It's 15 hours drive door to door from here to central London, and it's 2 hours on a plane.
Yeah.
So
it
didn't feel, you could take longer getting up to Birmingham or Manchester, to be honest.
Easily.
So it didn't feel. So for me, that I kind of legitified it with that. I hadn't accounted for a global pandemic.
Nobody had.
And like millions of other people, forced separation was really challenging to deal with, and having dealt with my own abandonment issues from childhood over the years, the last thing I ever wanted to do is for my kids to feel the same as that. So that's why for me it was super important to know that they were on board and behind me. And they're all here in the summer. That they come over a couple of times a year. I go to London 2 or 3 times a year. So it's just this first year. This is the first year where it's felt like, okay, we're in the rhythm of communication. And if I was living in London, I'd maybe see them a bit more. But they're busy with their lives as well. So when I go over and start demanding that, like, let's do lunch on Sunday and go out on Monday evening, and they're like, we've got lives too, Mum.
Yeah.
So it falls into a nice kind of rhythm.
There's also a thing about visiting people that are further away than people that are closer.
Yeah, true.
You visit them more.
You do.
I definitely do. Like, if my friends that I used to work with down south are like, in fact, one of them texted just the other morning, like, oh, I'm up for a couple of days. He's got a funeral. So he's like, oh, I'm up for a couple of days. I'm like, I'll book those days out.
Yeah.
Whereas if you lived round the corner, I'd be like, oh, I'm busy this week. Can we catch up next week?
And then it's just the next week, and then that week never comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So COVID.
Yeah.
COVID was a big thing. What?
Shit.
But you came here, you were yourself, you and Mars. I can't imagine Mars is great with a nail gun or a screwdriver.
Not great with a screwdriver, no.
Mars is a cat for anybody listening.
Cutest cat.
So you must have found a lot of worth in that, though, because there can't be much more difficult than that. Now. You've done that at the start.
Yeah.
You're not waiting for the difficult bit. Everything can be compared to that.
Yeah.
Because you can get away from this now. What worth did you find in that, if you look back on it?
If I look back on it, I mean, I was very lucky. I don't know if your listeners would know about the Workaway.
Well, probably not, because we didn't know about it
until you explained it to me.
Which is cool.
I didn't know about it, but somebody told me about it's a system of volunteering around the world where, as a host property, you sign up and say, I live in this area, this region of whichever country. These are the things I need help with, and you can come and live with me for 1-2 weeks more, depending on what everyone wants, how everyone gets on. In exchange for a few hours' work, 5 days a week, they get board and lodging, food and accommodation, and a cultural experience. So the first people that came to me were a couple from Argentina, and they came. They were from Rio Grande, right in the south of Argentina, and they left at -15 degrees was their air temperature, and when they arrived in Toulouse, it was plus 45 degrees. So they had a bit of time adjusting, but they were great and got loads of things done. And you become like a small family, like hanging out together. They'd come to all the like fetes and different events that were going on. And it's through the determination and passion and love from all these people that this has got as far as it has, because it would have become challenging financially and with getting tradesmen. So that's the really important to let people know that it's not just me single-handedly that's built this place. There's been a lot of support from strangers, which is kind of lovely, or people I didn't know before. as well as local tradesmen, the plumber and electrician have been key, obviously. And then I had somebody come to stay with me for 2 weeks as a metal worker just before the lockdown, the first lockdown. And he decided to stay. Do you want to go, or do you want to stay trapped in a big house with me? I didn't even have the cat then. And so he decided to stay. And I said, well, if you stay, we've got to build 2 bedrooms, a bathroom and a shower on the second floor. So we had a project.
Yeah.
So that was an amazing gift, actually, to be able to work alongside someone who's really interested and invested in your project as you are.
Yeah.
And we had a really lovely time. It was a beautiful friendship was formed. And he still comes back like once or twice a year to do a few more metalwork things and hang out. And then the other thing, then the second lot of lockdown, I was completely on my own, and that's when I started making my goddess sculptures. Mm-hmm. So I knew I needed something.
Your ceramic sculptures.
My ceramic sculptures, yeah. So I needed a project to focus on. Started making female forms out of ceramics, out of clay, and then that just grew into this big series of earth, air, fire, water and spirit goddesses, which is still ongoing. But I'd say it's pretty much kept me sane, having a project. And I put on my own solo show in the big flower store. Literally, I was the only person, obviously. And so that was fun. And then since then, I've had exhibitions in a few different places, including locally in a Roman chapel at the top of Luzerson Hill, which hopefully you'll get to see before you leave.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So the other thing I think I really understood during lockdown was how connected we all are to nature. Mm-hmm. And that if I was having days of like overwhelm, or the feeling of it's too much and it's too heavy. Obviously, we were all being fed so much fear, and it's extremely challenging.
And don't forget, you've just started a business in a different country. You've just taken out a mortgage in a different country. Yeah. You have a fucking massive project, like an unsurmountable project for one person. Yeah. Like, this is a big project for a new developer with a team, never mind one person. So you got all that.
Yeah. So occasionally I had days where I was a bit, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, excuse my language. And I was a bit sort of overwhelmed, and I felt the weight of it. Mm. Not just of the mill here, but like humanity in general, the whole world almost imploding, and millions of people suffering from separation from their loved ones and having their lives controlled by others. Mm-hmm. It's really big stuff that, you know, worrying about 3 kids in different places that were all on their own. And, you know, that
consumes your mind, just that.
Just that, yeah. Are they going to be okay? Do I need to get them food? You know, and their mental well-being and all those things. So what I got great comfort from in those moments of overwhelm was standing in the river. Mm-hmm. It could have been like 4 degrees outdoors, and you just stand in the river and your feet are freezing, and you're just like, oh, look, the trees are still doing the tree thing. The birds are still doing the bird thing. Yep. The river's still flowing. I'm not going to fall off the edge of the planet. It's all good.
Yeah.
And then go and make a cup of tea. So it's...
Rocks and rivers don't have meltdowns.
Rocks and rivers do not have meltdowns. That's very poetic. So I found, you know, and then I'd go for a walk every day and be out in nature and see, I don't know how many sunsets were always magnificent. So it taught me, you know, I can be all right on my own for extended periods of time. And I think what happens is when you meet people again, there's so much more love and connection with complete strangers, because you really can appreciate another human being. Mm-hmm. Mm. So I would say...
that step back allows you to appreciate it even more.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, challenging. But yeah, I think that the nature had your back. Mm-hmm. And I was so privileged to have it here. And so many people in cities going stir crazy because they didn't have it, and they just had that disconnect.
Do you think you would be here and the mill would be here if it wasn't for COVID? Right now, you would obviously be here, as in you would probably still own the place.
Yeah.
But do you think it would exist as it exists right now if it wasn't for COVID?
Yeah, I'm quite determined.
Yeah.
Stubborn, some might say. So when I have a project in mind, the minute I walked into the property, I knew that this room was going to be a library, that room was going to be a salon. There were going to be bedrooms where the bedrooms are, and I don't have a problem with like working out spatial planning and stuff. So I could see it all working, no problem. And obviously we've done the major amount of work so far is the phase 1. So we've got 5 bedrooms and an apartment. It's 5 or 6, 5 bedrooms and an apartment. 6 bedrooms and an apartment, and the salon and the library and the event space and the ceramic studio. So that's a massive tick for me. So the next phase is 2.5 more apartments really, and then working on the grounds to get fencing and have more space for tents and festivals, all those things that we've been talking about. So it would still be here. Yeah, I think so. And the project hasn't really changed. It's still about me having time to be an artist and still having time with other people and the building working to sort of wash its own face to allow me to be an artist. That balance hasn't quite sort of got to equal yet, but we're very close.
Is it closer than when you moved in?
Oh, way closer, yeah. I mean, so we're 2023 now, September. This summer, spring, summer, just gone, has been full-on artist residencies, 2 massive birthday events. I've lost count of how many writers' retreats, self-directed writers' retreat guided with a published author and poet. So it's done exactly what I wanted it to do. So now I'm at the point of reviewing all that, what worked really well, what wasn't so hot for me, and readdressing the sort of tweaking to get the balance better and get next year's programme of events in. And super excited.
It's amazing.
Has it tweaked at all from your original vision? With regard to writers' retreats and the things you've got going on, has it opened up more doors than you expected it to open up?
What's happened is I've really sort of felt into the things that bring me the most joy, and I want to go for them. Also, what I've realised is I'm not actually a Wonder Woman, and
you sure?
Yeah.
You sure
spinning all the plates and spinning all the plates. Obviously, everybody who's running their own business and who's a maker or creator knows you have to wear a stupid amount of hats. And there are some hats that I don't want to wear anymore. So
you can be a bit more selective of what you want to be doing.
And there's areas of the business that I need to concentrate on more that kind of get pushed to the wayside because I'm busy doing. Facilitating the retreats and things like that. So what I realise is I need to at least one other person on board in a physical, practical sense, and ideally, as we've all talking about, someone to do the social media side of things or the administration side of things more. So that's become, and I can't let my own self-care fall through the cracks because it's the oxygen mask thing, isn't it? You give yourself the oxygen mask first so that you can save others. I haven't been doing that very well this year. I mean, I'm fine.
But there's an area for improvement.
But there's an area for improvement, yeah.
Paul Handler told us you can do anything, you can't do everything.
Yeah, that's very true.
We need to get that on the back of the t-shirt.
Yeah.
Paul will sue us, he told us. He wouldn't sue us, not at all. So stage 2 is you finish the bedrooms that we've all talked about, which brings you up to 10 capacity.
I don't want to go over 15 capacity. So with 2.5 more apartments, there's another 5-6 people. So we'll be about 15, just under.
What's stage 3?
Stage 3. Well, I suppose I want stage 2 to be those apartments finished and the outside grounds, so that we can facilitate bigger events like festivals of some description and bigger gatherings. Stage 3, maybe some more free time for myself to spend more time creating. I mean, I'm trying to sort of do the two in parallel, where each year, 8 months of the year, doing full-on retreats, residencies, co-living for creatives, because it's really nice and you have creative people around enjoying the space. Obviously didn't move to this massive space just to live on my own with a cat. That wasn't the plan. But some time on my own that I can be in the ceramic studio creating is the bit that's fallen off the wagon at the moment. But we're not at the end of the year yet, so...
You'll need to tell...
Still time to pull it back.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll need to tell our listeners about your little post-it note idea. I love it.
Oh, yeah. So I had long COVID. Well, I had COVID last October, nearly a year ago, and it took me a long time to recover. Basically, 3 weeks after I had it. I mean, I passed out at one point. My daughter found me, like, almost keeling over. And the physical recovery was fine, but I pushed it, and I did dinner for 26 people here with the help of my daughter. Basically turned one of the rooms downstairs into a pop-up restaurant, and then served a 4-course meal to 26 people. And then the next day got on a plane to London to go and do a load of surveying of royal parks. And then came back and realised you've overcooked it, because I was in a bit of a mess. Energy levels were just through the floor. I just, like everyone with long COVID, and I just couldn't seem to be able to use a laptop anymore. And my brain just had stopped working. At one point I thought I was having a stroke, because I just couldn't remember what I was doing. So then I realised, okay, you really need to sort stuff out and start upping the self-care. So I rested quite a lot. But I realised that my mind was so busy. I had so many things in my brain. So one day I just got a packet of Post-it notes and I started writing everything that was in my brain. Small to high level, more self-care, get into a stretching routine, make sure I cold swim every day, have a holiday, get the kids over here for a holiday in September, meet We Are Makers, run this residency, artist residencies, make more goddesses. It was like probably about 100 on the wall. And then the second part of that was brought about by listening to Jay Shetty on one of his podcasts. And he talks about having a jar of gratitude, because, as you know, our brains are very much wired towards the negative. So he suggested a jar of gratitude, so that on the 31st of December, every time you were grateful for something, you wrote it on a piece of paper and you put it in the jar. And then the 31st of December, you open the jar and you just have all these things that you're grateful for the whole year that's just gone, which is a beautiful idea. So I kind of tweaked that idea, and every time something was done that was on the wall, I put it in the jar of done. Yeah. So that when I get to the 31st of December, instead of my brain going, you didn't finish the apartment on the first floor, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, which is how my brain would go, I can now empty this jar out and go, oh, I forgot, we got the printing press over from Oxford University, who very kindly lent us on long-term loan, and Albion Press, and we met with We Are Makers, and we got that set up for next year, and we've done this and we've done that, and it would all be there, and I can celebrate the achievements.
It'd all be
the
there,
year.
Spread out.
I think we should all do that. I think we need to do that.
Yeah.
So it's
we
really,
need to do that, because we finish every year thinking, what did we not do?
Yeah, what
First
did we
question
not
is, what
do?
did we not do?
Not what did we do?
exactly.
Yeah.
And if
So
you're
if
listening
anyone's
to this,
listening, you do the same.
Yeah.
do the same, put it in the jar.
Yeah.
It's
And I will report back on the 1st of January.
I still, one of the things that's still up on the wall is book myself a holiday and give myself time to write, because I'm writing a book and a film script. I haven't done that yet, but we're only at September at point of recording, so October, November, still got 3 months.
Still need to find that holiday time.
Yeah.
Has it differed at all from what you originally wanted it to be? You know, you've got your 3 slogans, which are
connection, creativity, and community.
Yeah. Have you deviated from that? Was that your original slogan for the mill?
Yeah. That came through quite quickly, actually. And the whole logo is about the bee is the centre of the bee is a symbol for creativity.
Okay.
The hexagon shape is for community, and the circle is connection. So those 3 shapes within the logo that I designed were quite key. I have to say I've been really lucky in that the local community have 100% got behind me and have shown me so much love and so much support. During COVID especially, I think if I hadn't had those local connections, I would have felt, pretty isolated.
Pretty much isolated.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that as a foreigner coming in to buy a historic piece of land in a small town in France?
I didn't go in with a negative mindset. I think some people would, a lot of people say, well, that's a risk. What about the local community? And do you know people there? And I'm like, no, apart from the person I'm buying the house from, I don't know anybody. Yeah. So he was very good. Serge, because the buying process took about 2 years. So he let me come and go several times within that time and see it in autumn, summer, spring, winter. And I came with my kids and I came with other friends and I came on my own. And he introduced me to various local people. I went to the Meet the Mayor event, which was interesting. Mm-hmm. But straight away, the people that, there's a bit of land at the back, and the previous owner used to let them have their horses there in the winter because they can get to the river and not worrying about freezing, water troughs and stuff. So I said, yeah, that's fine. Let's carry on doing that. Just don't need any money for it. It's just it's a nice thing to do. And they're a pair of retired doctors that have got the horses. So they know everyone in the village. So they introduced me to everyone. So then I was taken to there's a fête de couchon, the festival of the pig. There's chestnut festivals, nut festivals. What other festivals are there's festivals, wine festivals. I'm pretty sure there's a honey festival. There's loads of different festivals. So I was taken to the festival of the pig in another village and introduced to a load of other people who run the carnival and the local fairs and things. So, I said, they needed some people to help paint paper mache animals for the carnival. So I said, yeah, you can come and do it in my garage. There's a lot of space there. And so these connections become, just like a mycelium network. I use that expression quite a lot. Everyone overlaps and integrates and, oh, somebody said you've got a big space that we can use for a music event. Yeah, come along and have a look. Oh, somebody said it. So then it just layers up like that. So when I'm in a position where I've got a flat battery on the car and I need to be somewhere, there's someone I can call who will come and help me. And so the sense of community is very strong. That's great. Yeah, I'm really lucky. Yeah.
And what about the sense of community you've managed to build for the mill?
Yeah, I send newsletters out. My network of connections is more London and UK based. Mm-hmm. So building the French side of things is taking longer. I do speak French, but not very well. Well enough to get by, to be fair. But finding other artists that I want to collaborate with and having exhibitions with, that part is a bit more challenging, and joining the different associations and things. Again, it's my French PR hat that's kind of slipped slightly because it's just, I suppose, going back to the audience that I know.
Yeah, PR's hard enough, then doing PR in a non-mother tongue.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Yes.
What would you do with this place if you knew you couldn't fail?
But I don't really think of failing. Just how quickly it becomes super successful. Mm-hmm.
I'd say that's a good...
Ask me that question again.
What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
If I knew I couldn't fail? No, it doesn't enter. so I can't compute.
I'd say that's a pretty good. That's a pretty good marker that you're on the right path, right? If that question doesn't even answer, it means it's something you've never thought about.
Yeah, I mean,
you just do it faster, right?
I'd like to do it faster. Yeah. Not that I'm impatient or anything.
Yeah.
I think it's. I've recently been reading Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, and I really believe if you're passionate about something and it fills your heart with joy, then that's the right thing to do.
Yep.
And it will come good, because we're all here to experience joy and to be creative. And I think we are sideswiped at an early age with a specific type of education system maybe that sort of knocks the creativity out of you, wants you to conform and work more conventionally. But I think there's a massive resurgence with makers and crafts and people honing in and go, no, actually, I want more than that. So yeah, I think I'm giving it my best shot. What's the worst thing that could happen, I suppose, is financially not be successful or viable. But even if that were to happen, then I've had an amazing time and an amazing journey and experienced and met so many amazing people. But I don't think that's maybe a year or two ago I might have been. I was more wobbly on that, maybe.
Yep.
I would say a bit more.
But there was a million reasons to feel
There was a million reasons for that.
Yeah.
So,
What was the big one? What changed? What changed that now that doesn't faze you as much?
the fact that I've been in crappy financial situations before and I've always found a way out of them.
Yeah, you've got a stack of evidence to say that, well, I got through it last time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The fact you're here is the evidence of that.
Yeah, but I don't want to be I don't want to be in that survival mindset. I don't want to be in that fight or flight. Mm. And I think that's very deeply ingrained in me. Mm-hmm. So I want to be more in the abundant mindset of like just accepting that it's coming. Yeah. So today I'm going with that.
I love it.
I hear it.
Yeah, it's just sort of fuck it. It's easier to believe than it is to not believe.
You got to believe something.
It feels nicer.
Yeah, you got to believe something. You might as well believe it's going to work.
Yeah.
Like, bet on yourself. Just bet on yourself.
And I'm glad we made the connection. We appreciate you, supporting our magazine. It's nice to see it here behind you.
Yeah.
And a nice little pile. You think so many hours work in it.
So many years working that, Kate, especially for you.
Yeah.
You're the one that's the flagship of that.
It's nice how,
Well, I think we started at a similar time because I remember seeing you guys on Instagram and thinking, oh, yeah, we've got about the same amount of followers, and it might have been when we were in the 50s or 100 or whatever. Yeah. Of course, you guys have gone woof like that with the numbers, and I'm slowly catching up.
Yes.
But I love your product, and I think it's a beautiful publication, and it's just it's like another ode to other people like me exist, and we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to carve a way in our lives where we're doing the things we love. Yeah. And it's not always easy.
No.
And what I found really lovely that you said, Jack, when I said how many people have made what was their sideline hustle project into their main thing, and what proportion have been successful at it, because it's a massive leap of trust. And you said you think it's quite a big percentage that have nailed it.
And of the percentage that haven't done it, if they did just make the jump, they'd make it work. Yeah. There's enough substance there.
Yeah.
Kate's very good at finding people with a lot of substance, and there is a lot. I'm also convinced and championing the fact that makers might be a minority, but they're a really loud minority. Like they're a really powerful bunch of people, and when they're out there, they're doing pretty fucking cool shit.
Yeah.
Like there's some pretty cool stuff that exists in the world because people have says, stuff your IT job. I'm going to go and do this. Because Otherwise, it'd be a bit mundane. It'd be a bit boring, wouldn't it?
It's brave, but I also think people that haven't managed to escape the IT job, for example, have a massive appreciation. And even in the sort of buying the magazine and seeing other people, it gives them maybe, okay, I'm going to start doing like a Wednesday night pottery class or woodworking course or whatever. And I think that has just gone through the roof. It's like humanity has worked out that living in big cities and not following, at least in some part, your passion is not healthy and it's not rewarding. I think people are, I don't want to say the word waking up, it sounds too... I think people are becoming very aware that there's a part of their physiology, physical, psychology, soul that needs to be making or creating or writing or doing something that's not just to pay the bills.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you can make it into a big thing, that's great. Or if you can do something where you can do the two, which is kind of what this is trying to do, or this is doing. It's one can get to one's... I don't ever want to get to my deathbed and regret not having given it a go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one of those things that sounds really cliche. Like, you never want to sit at your deathbed and regret it, and it sounds really cliche, but it's like...
It's true.
It's really true.
It's true.
Like, does anyone want to get there and regret it? Like, it'd be a bit shit, wouldn't it?
Well, when you speak, you hear people who are in palliative care. That's one of the biggest things. Is that 5 top regrets is not telling people you love them enough, not spending more time with friends and family, not doing the thing you loved. I can't remember what the other 2 are, but there's like 5 key things, and we're here for such a tiny amount of time. So let's just give it our best shot and
give it a good go.
Yeah, enjoy the journey, as they say.
Like
another massive cliche.
I know, because we keep saying we could have started the magazine earlier, but actually I think everything that we've done so far has allowed us to do this, and I think it's actually the right time.
Yeah, you do that thing of, if I started this and you'll be the same, or if I bought them all 10 years earlier, I'd be 10 years further ahead.
See,
would you?
I have a theory. Well, you're not ready till you're ready. So I wasn't ready to do my degree until I was a grown up with 3 kids. Just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to do this until I was ready. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're changing direction in your life, leaving a relationship that is no longer serving you or working properly, you know, we've all seen it. We've all seen that couple that, why are they still together? It's obvious they hate each other, but they can't. They're not ready till they're ready to switch it.
Yep.
Because you have to find a bit of bravery in there to do these things.
Oh yeah.
And and obviously the mill was waiting for me to turn up. So
the mill was ready for you.
Even if I was ready 5 years earlier, it wouldn't. You know, the mill wasn't quite ready.
So to summarise, you've got a massive, and not to summarise to end the conversation, but to summarise the mill, we've got a huge ex-industrial space from 1700s, possibly earlier on the Founds, with its own, I know you've not got it set up yet, but it's still got its own turbine, it's all been converted into, you've got the workshop over there, you've got these amazing grounds, you know, we had a barbecue the other day, we were wild swimming the other day, we were, like, it's got this amazing room that we're in, the blue room, you know, the like reading room, the very quiet room, it's got this sort of exhibition space, very airy room out there, it's got the apartment that Kate and I have been staying in, and it's all fostered around community, connection and creativity. And it's what you've been trying to build. So that's the summary. But Kate, why are we here?
Yeah, why are we here?
Exciting thing.
I'm going to sit back and let you to.
I know, I just...
Because I think this is probably the time to
talk about
to be saying to people why we visited the mill and why we have now become invested in the mill. Yeah,
I think, you know, one of those things is many makers work alone, very much in their own heads, and they just want connection with other people, and a lot of the time it is over Instagram or emails or phone calls or whatever that may be, but not often do we get together in a setting where you can just be relaxed and chilled and be inspired by other people. So I think our idea with you was to have a makers retreat, which is super exciting. And I think, you know, even last night when we did a reel on Instagram, our phone hasn't popped like that for a long time, and it just shows us that something that is needed.
Yeah, definitely.
And that it's a good idea. One of our good ideas. Many of our good ideas.
one of many.
Yeah. And,
if we give ourselves credit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should.
And yeah, I think to have a makers retreat here would be ideal, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it for months, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I think we've had a mutual appreciation of, I see what we're doing the same thing. We're supporting makers and creatives and giving them a voice. And this is just like the next level, bringing it into reality. And, you know, I feel the same thing. I feel the isolation. You know, it has been a big project, and it's like, oh, it would be easier if there was like another person, partner, somebody else to do that. And I've had a little bit of that with the Workawayers coming, because they become that person, like that support, which is
someone
so
just
valued.
to chat to and just be like, does this idea work? Does it not work?
Exactly.
You know, I'm not sure because I've thought about it too much.
Yeah, exactly. You can go a bit mad. And the studio space is 110 square metres, so we've got it divided into two sections. One is the ceramic studio, and now that we have this lovely Albion press, it'll be the print studio at that end. And you can easily have 12 people in the ceramic, 4 or 5 people in the print area. And it's, you know, it's a nice, really airy space. So it'd be nice for it not to just be me sitting there making.
Because we never talked about that, as having, you know, courses here. You know, people could come and
learn.
So
so the idea is that other creatives who want to lead and facilitate their own retreats. So I should say, so it's twofold really. You asked me what's changed and what I've honed. What I've honed is in the autumn and spring months, I wanted to be a co-living space for creatives. 5 or 6 creatives come and rent a room for between 2 weeks and 2 months, and it's communal eating, shared kitchen space, and as well as the bedroom, your own individual living bedroom space. There's the communal spaces of the salon, this room that we're in now, the kitchen, and the ceramic studio, the print studio, and the flower store, exhibition, event space, dance space, music space, whatever people need. Yeah. That's what's great about having a big empty space. So that will give a sense of community, and that the building's being used in the cooler months. And then June, July, August, September, it's for other people to come, rent the space, rent the whole building for a week at a time to facilitate their own retreats where they're leading a group of people in their own speciality. And I become support act.
Yeah.
So I take care of pastoral care and whether people want me to do the cooking or providing the food or not, or whatever level it's required. That's where what I've honed, what I've learned from this year.
Yeah.
Is that it's difficult for me to run a retreat, for example, a ceramics raku retreat, and do all the other things.
Yeah.
So
can't be 2 places at one time.
No.
Do anything, not everything.
Yeah. So I can live alongside the other artists within the co-living space, which gives me time to create. My phone's going off, sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry.
How's that even going off when it's on silent?
Sorry, don't worry.
And airplane mode. So that's where I've done the honing of what my experience earlier on in this year is. Do that. Do the co-living space so I can be an artist among artists without full-time caring for everyone, if you like. And that gives me a bit of creative space. And then the rest of the time, I'm playing wing woman to whoever's running their retreats here through the summer months.
Yeah.
And then I give myself time off.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. I'm saying that out loud.
You're saying that out loud, so you listen back to this and be like, oh yeah, I really need to do that.
Yeah, that needs to be put in the jar of
yes,
done.
It does.
1 month off.
Yes,
yeah,
it
exactly.
absolutely does.
So you've found your artistic side. You've You've not found you've reconnected with your artistic side, I should say. You're in the midst of doing the mill thing. Mm. Do you feel like Nathalie now?
Yeah, I really do. She's not bad.
She's not bad.
She's all right.
Yeah, I feel, and obviously being an interior designer and interior architect for other people, I thought it was a creative industry, and it is to an extent, but a lot of the time you're fulfilling other people's dreams.
Yes.
Whereas here, if I decide I want to paint a room dark blue, cobalt used climb blue, just with 100% pigment.
Doing it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it.
And it looks good.
Thank you. And being able to sort of curate little vignettes, and it's been great fun for me.
Yeah.
It hasn't really felt like massively onerous. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Freeing, I can imagine.
Very freeing, yeah. And it's not over yet. The fact that I've still got like 2.5 more apartments to build.
Yeah, there's so much
super
more to
exciting.
Yeah.
I've got more boxes to empty.
Yeah, yeah.
It is going to be wicked when it's done. It's wicked already. Yeah. Like, it's super cool already.
Yeah, part 1, really happy. Part 2 is just going to be building on that.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can have many retreats here, which would be an ideal dream.
Yeah, the place is yearning to be filled with good conversation, good folks, good food,
memories,
fun.
Making memories is a big thing, isn't it?
It's what's so lovely for me is when last week when we worked with dialect writers who support rural writers, and they were up here doing workshops, and I was downstairs in the kitchen, and I just kept hearing laughter, and I'm just like, that's just what I want. It's just to hear walking past rooms and hearing conversations, or when the artists are here and putting a show on in there just for me, which is incredible.
Yeah.
It was just so beautiful, and this is what life is about: time with people, people making friends with new people, connections, and experiencing moments of joy and bliss. And I think it's so exciting to be working with you, with more makers coming here. I just feel that this is going to be like a year-on-year 2 or 3 retreats.
And that's what we hope. We always hope to build long-standing relationships with people.
Yeah, my first brief to Kate, when Kate approached me about this, and when sort of quotes started sliding over the desk, is nothing we do can be a one and done.
No.
Like, you're going to spend the money and you're going to do it forever. Like, if you're going to give it 5 minutes, give it 5 years.
Yeah.
Do it forever. Keep doing it. Keep reconnecting. Don't just connect once. Keep reconnecting. Keep relationships alive. Because I think that's what sets us apart from certainly a lot of current journalism. And it's not to bash journalism. We've done well even recently out of great journalists, but connection, community, and all those things.
We're just us.
Yeah, they don't exist in a vacuum, in a one-off vacuum.
No.
They have to exist as a recurrence to get anything out of them. Go back to Holly Cooper's. We done a podcast with Holly Cooper after featuring the first edition, and it was like wildly different story because people have seasons in life. I was introduced to this in America. A lot of people mentioned it, and I was like, it makes total sense. You have different seasons in your life, and people change all the time.
Yeah.
So coming back and revisiting stuff, and the Makers Retreat, like that will change through the years, and that will get better through the years, and we'll learn so much from the first one. Why would you not do the second one? You'll learn so much from the second one.
Yeah.
Why would you not do the third one? We posted a 10-15 second reel last night, and I think about midnight I went to bed after answering people's DMs, and that was the 100th person messaged with their email address to say, I'm in.
I'm in, like, this is what I need. This is what I want.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this, there's 100 of yous, and there's 12 spaces to sleep, so work it out.
Taking turns.
Yeah, so work it out.
Well, it will just grow. As the mill grows, we'll be able to host more people in groups. But again, we don't want it to be like too big as a retreat, but there's the potential for We Are Makers Festival. When we have more tents outside, and it morphs into something else. So the fact that we're having this conversation and we're already spinning these ideas and they've just gone up into the universe and 100 people have come in and going, yeah, we're down with that.
Yeah.
There's probably more now because I've not checked my phone since we started this podcast. So.
Exactly. And it's just gaining momentum because it's come from a good place. Mm-hmm. I really believe that.
Yeah. And like, obviously, we will be trying to find support with sponsorships and funding. Mm-hmm. So if anyone's listening to this, we have listeners from all over the world. I mean, we want this retreat to be people from, there's people talking about flying over from America to come to France. I mean, that's, you wouldn't do that unless you really you wanted to do it. So it's like trying to find...
I had 2 or 3 people last night message from Texas being like, I want to get there. Yeah. What's one person, what's the local airport? I'm like... Calm down. Give me a minute. I don't even know what the local airport is yet.
So, for anyone listening, if there's any support that you can offer or want to sponsor or want to help fund this project, then let us know because, we're all trying to do this together, to make it happen. So, just thought I'd put that in there.
Absolutely. Quite right. So, Kate.
Yes. My last question.
I feel like you've prepped this.
No. It's a question I always ask. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, follow your instincts more. Mm-hmm. Don't turn away from yourself to please others.
That's a good one.
That's what I would have said.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that one.
But again, I wasn't ready till I was ready to do that. So...
Yeah, many people have said, like, I don't know if I'd give myself advice on that subject because where I am now is because of everything I've done.
Yeah,
so
it's very true. I allowed other people, in my life to. It comes from really ridiculous early abandonment issues. I mean, that gets thrown around so much, and I think we've all had it on various scales. But it's just taken a lot of self-work to work out what that was. And then that gave me the strength. At one point when I was moving here, it felt so difficult. It just felt like everything was going against me to the point, I think we talked about it the other night, where I was like, okay, so am I doing the wrong thing? Is this like the universe or somebody trying to tell me, don't do it? But... a good friend of mine, she said, the reason it's so difficult is because as a woman, you're standing on your own and you're changing the DNA of all the women behind you through hundreds of years who have always done the same thing. They've got married, they've had kids, they've done the secretarial job, they've got married, they've had kids, they've done a waitressing job. And now you are going, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to move over here. It's just like steering a really big... exactly. And it's like trying to turn a cruise ship into a different direction. It takes 4 miles to turn a quarter of a mile or something. I'm not sure that's quite right. But so I'm trying to steer all this lineage behind me into this new direction. And I really, really had to hold fast. Mm-hmm. And I did. And we're here, sitting around the red table.
And you're just going to keep that path going.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about what that means for your lineage? You've got kids.
Yeah. I think they'll have a great big mill with an apartment each in it if the world implodes, and a veggie garden and a river to swim in. So
and they'll all be wicked good in cold water.
And they'll all be very good at swimming in cold water.
We've got to a bit here, and then I started feeling dizzy yesterday, and I was like, okay, maybe tomorrow.
Hey, right, see if anyone's on Instagram and watching all these like super tough dudes, and they're like, I'm tough, I'm ex-Marine, or I'm this or that, like, that's cool. But see anyone that's jumping in a cold river coming into the winter, like, that's fucking hardcore. That's tough.
But it feels so good, and it puts everything. I think it's one of the things that again has really helped me stay sane, because there's nothing, you can't think about bank balances, this, that, or the other.
Oh, you're trying to keep yourself alive. That's
when
why.
You're just breathing in the cold water. Yeah. It's like it puts everything into perspective. Yeah.
Yep, I hear it.
It does.
Well, thank you so much for inviting us over, and
I'm just so glad it happened.
I know.
It's happening. It's,
you can think about ideas for ages and ages and ages, but I think what we're good at is that we have got this idea, right, let's explore and how can we do that, and we do it now. We're not going to be like, okay, had this idea, maybe we'll do it next year, or maybe we'll do it next year, but you know, by this time next year we've already had the retreat, you know.
Yeah,
or maybe have a second one, I don't know. So
exactly.
hopefully in a year's time we can sit back down and be like, well, that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah. What about the festival?
I know.
I'm convinced impatience is a superpower. Like, I'm convinced of it. Because everyone's always told me all my life I'm impatient.
I can see that.
And I'm like, look where I am.
You just told someone your moustache was a superpower.
My moustache is a superpower. That's where I keep my superpowers.
Yeah, that's good.
But you loved that last night when I texted Carl. That was funny. Yeah, impatience, like, don't, like, people stop using it as a negative word. It's cool. If you're impatient, it's just going to make you do more things.
Yeah.
As long as you're thinking about them. And that's the delineation between successful impatience and unsuccessful impatience. Like, are you thinking about what you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's just a case of believing as well. Every year I say, okay, this year I'm going to do this, this and this, and I've done it. And when I look back, I'm like, how did that happen? Because I didn't think it was going to at one point. But that's, again, the jar I've done and writing all the things on the wall is, it's a visual reminder of.
I like it for that. It's a visual reminder.
Yeah.
Because we can all put lists and notes and that is in front of you, and it's located in front of your kitchen where you obviously spend a lot of time, pardon me. I think we won't employ that in our office when we set up the office in the new house.
Yeah.
Well, I put it on the wall, and then I had the first writers' retreat coming in April, and I was like, shit, it's still on the wall. And they were literally walking through the door, and I was like, don't really care if they see it.
Yeah.
And the first thing everyone did is come in and stand looking at the wall,
Look
and
at
I'm
it.
like, oh, I'm sure it says tax return on there or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's fine.
People quite like that.
Yeah,
It's honest.
Do you know, I think, thinking about it now, I think there's a lot of, and I know one situation specifically that I know this would work in. There's a lot of small businesses, one I'm thinking of in particular that's not in the creative space that Kate and I are involved with and support and use their facilities, that if he had a wall of all the things that he has to do to keep those people paid, to keep that roof over those people's heads, and to keep the roof over the facility's head, I don't want to say what it is, I don't want to sting anyone, I don't know how many of them listen to our podcast, people would get a much bigger appreciation of what goes into running an independent business. Like you say, tax return.
dirty word.
Yeah, exactly. Like
French administration, that's fun.
We've all got to do these things, and it's like they're the things you forget about that has to happen. So when people are like, oh, you never email me back, or we'll often, and it's not a gripe, because I think it's wicked that people will submit, and then a week later, like they'll submit on the work on the website, and then a week later they'll DM us, and a week later they'll DM us, and I try and get back to anyone. So if I've not got back to you, or Kate's not got back to you, do just remind us, it's fine. But like, there's so much else going on that isn't just the fun bit, that isn't the renovating of the mill, that isn't the cobalt blue in the walls, that isn't the going and grabbing furniture. You know, there's so much else that needs done.
Yeah.
And I think that wall is a great physical representation in front of everyone, to yourself and to everyone else, of just how much needs done.
Yeah.
And equally, there's a lot of gaps in that wall now where stuff's been taken off.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah. I posted about it earlier on in the year when the wall was much fuller. And I'd listened to Holly Tucker on one of her podcasts. And it was quite a raw podcast. She was hot and sweaty. And she's like, these are all the things I've got running around in my head at the moment. It's just too much. And I was like, yeah, I hear where you're at. And I do this thing, post-it notes wall of blah, blah, blah. And I sent an image. She used it in a newsletter.
Oh, cool.
From the community. So maybe it's a thing.
Well, it might be a thing for us, so...
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a thing for us. I think that's one of the things I've definitely taken away from it.
You can take it off, you can put it in, and then at the end of the year you can realise how much you've done.
It's really satisfying.
And then you can see what you've still got to do.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's just another way of project managing, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Because you need to find a way that works for you. Ultimately, if it doesn't work for you, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. Well,
Fab. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you.
Yes.
I've really enjoyed our stay at the mill so far. We're day 2,
Yes.
and we've got Day 3.
The rest of the afternoon, which we might do our own podcast, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
I think we'll do our own podcast because people keep asking us to do it.
Good idea.
So that basically means I ask Kate loads of questions and then I'll skirt round all the questions Kate asks me. So...
Not sure that's working.
And thank you for doing your edition 7 in blue to match my library.
And your dress.
Yeah. And my dress.
It wasn't planned like that, honest.
No, it's great.
It's great. Well, thank you.
And for everyone listening to this, if you're coming to the retreat, you will meet Nathalie in
Mars the
late
cat.
May, early June, and Mars the cat, who I'm convinced is a dog in a cat's body.
Agreed.
Yep. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. Like Kate said earlier, if anyone knows anyone that wants to be involved or could help support that, our goal is to make sure that the makers aren't out of pocket for this. I don't want to create a space, nor does Kate, nor does Nathalie, where makers come to chill out, but they've had to take the financial stress on of that to chill out.
Yeah, exactly. Because then it's not as fun as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
it's just, you know, you just like, I really like to come, but I just can't afford it. Like many things in life where you're like, I'd love to do it, but can't afford it, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, and if there are any makers that are listening who need a space to facilitate running their own retreats.
Exactly.
And you want to come to a pretty corner of France.
Yeah.
A very pretty corner, and a very easy corner to get to.
Yeah, it's only an hour and a half from the airport.
Hour and a half, hour and 20.
Yeah.
Béziers Airport. We flew from Edinburgh for like, I think it was £103 return for 2 people.
Yeah.
Right,
so what's that, £51.50 each, Ryanair?
So there's Béziers, Montpellier and Rodez airports. And if you're coming internationally from the States, flying into Barcelona, and then there's a train to Béziers and from Béziers to here. So, I mean, it's a
doddle, eh?
It takes time. France is big, you know. We don't
France is massive.
France is massive.
You forget how big France is.
Yeah, we don't live near to an next door to an airport, which is great.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
And it's a lovely drive.
It's beautiful.
It's a really nice drive. So.
Yeah.
Nathalie, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll wrap it up at that.
Yeah.
Kate and I will get our big boy and girl pants on and go and do our podcast.